Well, Angela Diffley from our International Affairs Desk is with me here on set. Angela, it's been burning now for approaching a week. I mean, what are we starting to learn from this extraordinary situation?
Well, there is an emerging debate, a bit of a clash, an ideological clash, if you like, perhaps, between those whose priority is protecting wildlife and forest rangers. And it seems that France has two entirely contradictory codes in place, one pushed by the forest rangers, one pushed by the wildlife protection lobby. And the fact is that the forest code obliges forest rangers to clear brushwood from anything inside 200 metres from the edge of a forest. They are obliged to clear brushwood, and there are fines if you don't. However, the wildlife protection, the environmental code, says that that endangered species, their potential habitat must not be destroyed, and so that brushwood must not be cleared. And so forest rangers have been saying, we've been in a real dilemma. We don't know what to do. We maintain that a forest, to be well looked after, it needs upkeep, it needs the brushwood cleared, and in the end, wildlife will die in a forest fire if we're not allowed to do this. So there is something of two conflicting codes there. The forest rangers also say that only about 30% of areas which should be cleared of brushwood are cleared because of that very reason. And they also, some of the firefighters have been pointing out that 90% of the homes which were destroyed in areas where there was uncleared brushwood. So that is something which will certainly be looked at, I imagine, after this. Emmanuel Macron, when he was visiting the Gironde area where this huge fire is yesterday, pointed out, he said, let's pull together for now and then discuss mistakes made, lessons learned afterwards. And he brushed aside criticism that there was a lack of preparedness about this, and said, we'll address this much later. It is clear that those will be some of the areas that are looked at afterwards.
Yeah, inevitably, I suppose, in a situation like this, there are lessons to be learned. But I mean, what else is already starting to draw the attention of people as to what might need to change?
Well, it is important to note that, there have been comparisons made with fires in much of this area in 2022, just 4 years ago. But firefighters are making very clear that we have never seen this kind of fire in France. It is a different phenomenon. It is a pyrocumulonimbus, where the fire creates its own thundercloud. That thundercloud then triggers its own weather patterns, including lightning, which then often creates other fires. They've said we have never seen that before in France. It's much more, if it is seen, and it's relatively rare, it has been in Australia, the US, Canada, never before in France. So they're saying, the lessons aren't quite the same. That said, in terms of simple practical lessons, which will be looked at again, evacuation, organisation, access to water for these sort of incidents. What has been very remarkable, and a lot of people have found uplifting, is the enormous solidarity, as well as trained firefighters, professional firefighters. There are also in France volunteer firefighters, as in many other countries, who have some training. But they've also been helped to an enormous degree by local farmers, local people, giving them access to their own machinery, to water. The firefighters have also, local restaurants have been bringing food. The evacuation centres have been really well manned by people who just simply want to help and have been extremely efficient in doing so. If you talk to the people who are there, we've been hearing some of it here on France 24. So that sort of pulling together is something which will be examined and furthered, in contrast to what we see regularly, the division between, on the one side, environmentalists, on the other side, people who say these policies are unrealistic, they don't work on the ground. Somehow those two sides are going to have to work much better together if this sort of thing is to be avoided in the future.